Welcome to Monster Monday pre-show. My name is DM Gallibond, and what you are listening to is That's what you're listening to. You're listening to the dulcet tones of Syrinscape. This is a sound set called Friendly Tavern. And over there, you can hear the musicians playing for their mead, and kind of back over there, you can hear some of the patrons, their plates or mugs clinking a little bit. Every now and then you'll hear Kira, she's one of our regulars. She'll laugh a little bit. Sandar, he's another one of our regulars. Sometimes you'll hear him laugh a little bit. And then every once in a while somebody has a little bit too much to drink. And yeah, okay, so Syrinscape is just one of my favorite apps for desktop RPG or tabletop RPGs. Gives you all the best ambient sounds and music for any kind of situation, whether you're exploring, RPing, battling, whatever. So go check out Syrinscape. They don't sponsor the show, but I love using it on my streams. So I like telling people about it if they don't know about it yet. Alright, we're going to get started at the top of the hour. I'm going to mute while I fix my tea. Alright, we got a couple of minutes left. Hey viewers, how are y'all doing? Hope everybody has had a wonderful Monday. Alright, we will get started here in a few seconds. I'm going to go ahead and change the slate over here. I'm going to bring us away from those tables. We're going to go find a nice quiet corner near the fire. And we are going to say welcome. Welcome everybody to Monster Monday. My name is DM Gallibond, and it is Monster Monday for January 31st, 2022. Can you believe it? We've gotten all the way through a month of 2022 already. And tonight on Monster Monday, we are going to talk about the final new monster introduced in the Acquisitions Incorporated campaign. That is Splugoth the Returned. Now, Splugoth the Returned can seem at first glance like he's kind of a throwaway character, and he's a character kind of made for laughs. And that's pretty much true. However, there's some interesting things going on with him that we can use as DMs to create monsters at many different levels that become recurring adversaries for our PCs in our campaigns. So, we are going to look at that now. Splugoth, here he is in all of his glory. Splugoth the Returned looks like an ordinary golem, but looks can be deceiving. Splugoth's left eye is scarred from the wound he took while serving Omen Drawn. Now some whisper that through this eye Splugoth gets glimpses of the far realm beyond. And whether that's true or not, one thing is certain. When Splugoth speaks of what he has seen, you may just be stunned. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, in the true spirit of Acquisitions Incorporated, that is a pun. Alright, so, monster lore. What do we know about Splugoth? Well, Splugoth started his first life named Splug. And this goblin was captured and then employed by Omen Drawn, Jim Dark Magic, and Binwin Broadsbottom in the very first Acquisitions Incorporated adventure, all the way back in 4th edition in the town of Fallcrest, where they were delving into some old ruins outside of town. Now, Splug had been working for an evil cult that was worshipping a death god. After Splug's capture, he began work for Acquisitions Incorporated with the vaunted and valuable and highly respectable title of intern. Yes, indeed. And he heroically saved the lives of his employers. And thereafter, his employers failed to save him and he died. But he didn't stay dead. Now it's said that this was only the first time Splugoth the Returned passed beyond the mortal coil. Now, he works for a shadowy organization known as the Six. And it's said that all of those people in that organization have experienced death while they were employed by Acquisitions Incorporated. And Splugoth has made it his life's mission. This life, the next life, the life after that, as many lives as it takes, to end Omen Drawn and destroy, or perhaps take over, Acquisitions Incorporated. So, this is what we know about Splugoth. Now, Splugoth is a goblin, so that means he's a humanoid, is his creature type. And humanoids are the main peoples. They're bipedal. They have language and culture. They can usually learn spellcasting. They're some of the traditional player races and some of the traditional monstrous humanoid races, as well as a few other oddball races out there. Now, tonight, if we looked into the possible origins, we could spend a lot of time talking about some extremely high-level influences. At least when I look at Splug and I look at how he's used, my mind goes straight to some high-level adversaries that have been a part of D&D for a long, long, long time. How long? Well, do the names Strahd and Acererak mean anything to you? Strahd, of course, was introduced back in the original Ravenloft or Castle Ravenloft adventure that was published way back in the early 1980s. And Acererak goes all the way back at least to the original Tomb of Horrors, if he was not around before then. So why do those two high-level campaign capstone bosses remind me of Splugoth? Well, it's because you can't ever really kill any of them. All you can ever do is hope to slow them down long enough to reach retirement and die peacefully in bed with your grandchildren around you. So slowing down enemies like this only makes them angry. So you just hope that by the time they've recovered to bother the world again, they'll be a problem to plague those bastard grandkids of yours. And instead of going and looking at them in depth, we are going to go and just look at Splugoth in depth. Talk a little bit about him and how he sort of reflects some of the unkillability, if you will, of those other villains. So Splugoth is of CR2. He's armor class 15, 27 hit points, fairly average, slightly above average stat block. His skills aren't much to write home about, but he has a couple of different abilities here. So defensive advantage, he gains attack rolls against him are made with disadvantage as long as Splugoth has some allies nearby and he's not incapacitated. And he's got Nimble Escape, which is a goblin trait. And he's got this touch of madness, so he has advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. And Splugoth gets multi-attack, so he makes 2 attacks with his dagger. And it's +4 to hit and just normal slashing damage. It's a little bit, he gets 1d4 +2 because of his dex. But then he has this word from beyond. Once a day, he remembers and repeats aloud a few words from a place he entered while walking back from the next world to this one. And each creature he chooses within 30 feet that can hear him must succeed on a wisdom save or be stunned until the end of its next turn. Now, this phrase right here. There's been a lot of sage advice written about it. This is one of the inconsistent things in the way that 5e rules are sometimes written. But it's supposed to be interpreted the same way, apparently, based on what I've seen in Sage Advice. What this means is it means until the end of Splugoth's next turn, not until the end of the target's next turn. Because if you think about it, if Splugoth could stun somebody, and then and he uses that as his action. Okay, so he hasn't been able to attack anybody. Then let's say the person that he stunned goes right next after him in the initiative order. Well, that means that all Splugoth has done is kept that person from using a reaction or attacking him. Hasn't really affected him at all. The end of his turn, that person is free of the stun. What it's supposed to do, what those stunning kind of effects are supposed to do, is it's supposed to stun the opponent until Splugoth's turn comes around again, and then he gets to do something to that opponent without that opponent being able to do something to him. So that's the way that is supposed to work from what I've seen. There's been a lot of errata about a lot of effects where it's worded this way, and pretty consistently from what I've seen, Sage Advice has said, no. That when they say its next turn, it's talking about the creature that has the ability, not the creature that's targeted by the ability. So, again, just like with everything else, D&D, If you're the DM at your table, you roll it any way you want to. And Wizards of the Coast is not going to tell you that you're wrong. And if anybody else tells you that you're wrong, they are incorrect because it's your table, your game, you make the final rules. Okay, so then reactions, absorb attack. This is one of the things that really makes Splugoth quite a bit tougher than he seems. When a creature Splugoth can see hits him with a melee weapon attack, the weapon snags on the pocket of residual resurrection energy and is caught fast. The attack is negated and the weapon cannot be used until the creature succeeds on a strength save or a strength check as an action to pull it out of Splugoth. So you attack, and then you have to use your action, which you just used your action to attack. So you have to wait until your next turn and use your action to pull that weapon out. If there's just one person fighting Splugoth, then every other round, that person basically gives up an entire round of attacks because he's got to wait to pull that thing out. And if he fails, well, that's 2 rounds of attacks that the enemy has given up. So this is one of the things that makes Splugoth tougher. And then, of course, the fact that he doesn't stay dead. You kill him, and he doesn't stay dead. And we'll talk a little bit about how that works in the campaign. Okay, so we're going to go back here. Alright. So, using Splugoth in an encounter. Alright. Everybody, hang on a moment. I am going to mute and shut off the camera momentarily. See if I can do something about this. Alright, that might be a little bit better. The weather here in Florida has been changing very, very rapidly. And every time it does, it always messes with my sinuses. And decongestions tend to make me jittery. And antihistamines really don't do anything for this because it's weather related, it's not allergy related. Campfire 5. No, this is an official monster. This is a monster from the Acquisitions Incorporated campaign. So this Splugoth did not come out of my twisted brain. This actually came out of a combination of the twisted brains of Penny Arcade and Chris Perkins, who is the DM for the Acquisitions Incorporated Prime campaign that's been going on for years. They do that at the PAX conventions every year. So, Splugoth. If you wind up facing Splugoth, Splugoth is a CR2 monster, and that makes him a hard encounter for a level 1 party. Now, for a level 2 party, he becomes an easy encounter. And if you want to ramp that up and make it a hard encounter, you can add a garden variety golem to the encounter, or a goblin to the encounter. And the goblin and Splugoth together will make that a hard encounter. If you go to a 3rd level party, Splugoth by himself becomes an easy encounter until you add a 2nd Splugoth. And, I mean, why not? If he's a guy that won't die, there's gotta be, like, maybe sometimes multiple copies of him around. Something goes wrong, he gets regenerated before he dies. the next time. Yeah, it can happen. You can do that in your campaign if you want to. Alright, so if you're a player and you wind up having to face off against Splugoth, what are some tactics that you can use? Well, first of all, try to get him alone, because when he has at least 2 allies nearby, attacks against him are made at disadvantage. Number 2, don't be charming. Don't try to charm this guy, because Splugoth has advantage on saves against being charmed or frightened. Third, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him, because that word from beyond ability can stun chosen enemies within 30 feet for a full round. Long enough for him to dash away or sign your name on a binding contract that even Acquisitions Incorporated's lawyers can't help you escape. And fourth and finally, focus fire. Every round, Splugoth can use his reaction to cause one melee weapon attack that hits him to not deal any damage and to get stuck in a pocket of resurrection energy from the far realm. So the attacker must spend their next action to make a successful strength save to recover the weapon, thus spoiling their next round of attacks. So that's an important thing to remember about Splugoth. If you're fighting him, just everybody focus on him. That way, at least some people can hit him every round. Alright, now if you are a DM and you want to put Splugoth into your campaign, he's a great recurring enemy for a low-level party. His CR means he won't be a challenge beyond Tier 1, but he's the kind of enemy that can't be stopped by merely killing him. So just as Strahd has a connection to the land, which means that even if you defeat Strahd, after several years, Strahd will come back, and he will return as Lord of Barovia once again. And Acererak, my god, people have been trying to kill him since first edition, and he just keeps coming back. And every time he comes back, he seems to be stronger, more devious, and, trying to mess with the world even more. So whatever dark power keeps Acererak spinning him back in the natural world, that's similar with Splugoth, because Splugoth just won't stay dead. So if you run a campaign where the boss enemies are supposed to be nearly impossible to destroy, Splugoth can be a good way of introducing that concept early in your game. So perhaps the party kills him at first level, but he returns again when they're third level. Maybe they fight him and they kill him again, and then maybe he returns again when they're fourth level. And, at some point in your campaign, you would probably want to put a mechanism whereby you could make him die and stay dead at least for a long period of time, long enough that the players won't have to deal with him. Because if he keeps coming back the way he does in the Acquisitions Incorporated game, they could be 10th, 12th, 15th level and still have this guy being a nuisance. So, maybe you want to do that as a DM, but maybe you don't. Alright, so where would you put him in a campaign? In the Acquisitions Incorporated adventure, the party finds Splugoth at the end of the campaign. He's the mastermind behind a ritual that uses mystical components of a device the Six and Acquisitions Incorporated have been in a race to secure. The ritual, if Splugoth succeeds, will create evil versions of heroes from Ac Inc.'s most famous franchises, the Prime Team, the C Team, and others. And while the mystical device known as the Ori is in play during the ritual, Splugoth is immediately resurrected every time the PCs succeed in killing him. So literally you're in this fight and you keep killing him and he keeps just boom coming right back. And by resurrected, he's coming back at full strength. So he's not like a zombie where he comes back at one hit point. He's coming back at full strength. And you have to fight him and fight him and fight him. And the only way to stop that cycle is to deal with the actual mechanism, the machine called the Ori. So in a homebrew campaign, inside or outside an Acquisitions Incorporated franchise, you might have Splugoth appear in a similar way. He could be the boss of an organization making trouble in the local area where the PCs operate, and maybe he has some elaborate magical machinery that keeps bringing him back over and over and over again. So once the PCs succeed in determining the trick to deactivate the machine so Splugoth finally stays dead, they might realize that he is only the lowest level boss in an evil incorporated organization that spans your entire kingdom or campaign world, where all of the bosses have this feature. So maybe then there's a trick to getting rid of each one, and you have to figure out the trick of getting rid of Splugoth. Well, then as you get into your next story arc, you find the next boss, and there's a different trick to getting rid of that boss, and so on and so forth as you go on. So you could have fun with that, varying that in several different ways. So, why do we deconstruct or reverse engineer Splugoth? His story can inspire DMs to create a villain. Perhaps your PCs had a retainer or henchman that they carelessly or recklessly allowed to die. If they never gave that person's spirit or relatives closure, your campaign's antagonist might just go pump that dead soul for information, and maybe they make them an offer, and they resurrect them. And now, that old, faithful, one-time faithful retainer, now he's got it in for the PCs. A few levels down the road, PCs may start being ambushed or beset with foes that seem to know a lot about them and their abilities. So, hunting for whomever is sending these adversaries may eventually lead the party to find their old henchman, now resurrected and hungry for revenge. So, this dream of vengeance is not just a flight of fancy. The old henchman's new masters have granted greater power and mystical abilities that match whatever theme you've created for the evil ink of your campaign. So, here, it's in the Acquisitions Incorporated campaign that was published for 5th edition, that one of the tangent themes of the enemy organization is this far realm. So, these planes of existence beyond the outer planes. And so there's kind of that touch of far realm to everything that permeates through the campaign. But in your campaign, it might be demons, or it might be dragons, or it might be aberrations or something else. So find some sort of aspect that lines up with the theme of whatever your evil organization is looking for, and let that be a guide for creating an antagonist that's similar to Splugoth. Alright, so let's go take a look over here at the chat. Campfire 5, thank you for your earlier question. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and think of those and drop them in the chat. Meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and take us to our wrap-up information, then I'll check chat again. Alright, I've been DM Gallibond. This has been Monster Monday for Splugoth the Returned. And I have 4 live streams that I run every week. Monday, the Monster Monday is my one mic live stream. Then on Sundays and Thursday nights and Saturday nights, I run 5th edition games Thursday and Sunday. And then Saturday I run a 2nd edition game. And those you can find on my Twitch channel and on the YouTube channel. So simulcast on both places. And the archives of all those campaigns are over on the YouTube channel. We do have a Patreon if you want to help us try to do more things, improve our technology, and be able to tell more stories. That would be great. And then next week, since we've wrapped up our look at the new monsters out of the Acquisitions Incorporated book, we are going to go to the Strixhaven book, and we are going to start looking at the new monsters that came into D&D out of that book. We're not going to detail every monster. There are several classes of monster that each of the colleges in Strixhaven has one different version of it. So we're going to look at those kinds of monsters as a group. But we're going to start with the Archaic from Strixhaven next week. So join us next Monday night for that. Let me go take a look here. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the music back up here. And I'm going to take you to the credits. And then I'm going to go look to see if anybody else is streaming some D&D, and we'll go raid them. Alright, Needed Badly is streaming some Rime of the Frost Maiden. So we'll go ahead and flip you guys over there. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Thanks for watching. We hope we will see you next time here on Monster Monday. And as always, I'll sign off by saying, watch out for the monsters under the bed. Good night, everybody. And here is your raid.